Poke the Bear is brought to you by PrizePicks and the Game Time app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 278, presented by PrizePicks and Game Time tickets. My name is Conor Ryan. Once again, we are joined by the esteemed, the ever knowledgeable Ty Anderson of 98.5. What's up, Ty? How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. If you're watching this on video right now, I swear I don't have a black eye. It's just it's the sun's shadow around my face right now. Or the other one. Yeah, this one. I didn't get punched in the face. Just so everyone is clear, I did not get punched in the face. Just the shadows here are brutal in my apartment. So I'm doing I look like how the Bruins are kind of doing right now, it feels like. So it's oddly fitting, I guess, in that regard.
That'd be fun. That's actually what we should do, Ty, is the more the Bruins lose, the more just haggard we get. You know, like in Hercules, when he jumps into the pool and looks like shit and gets older and looks terrible. That should be us, just gradually just decaying away as the Bruins continue to either tread water or downright suck, as has been the case, I think, the last I would say the last couple of weeks, kind of the whole season. It's kind of been the same thing. And that's carried over into Thursday's game in Dallas, where stop if you've heard this before, Ty, but it felt like the Bruins had some momentum. They have that Tuesday comeback win against an admittedly pretty terrible Blues team, but a win's a win. You're feeling good. Maybe that's the galvanizing effort the Bruins are looking for. And what do? They laid an egg. They played awful in that game against Dallas. Fought back, made it a 2-1 game after a lot of calls didn't go their way. Again, feeling good, like they're back in it, and just completely take their foot off the gas in the second period. Lose 7-2. When you look at this team, Ty, what's kind of your big takeaway from all that played out from that game? Because I think there's a lot of takes to be drawn from a game like that, where it just feels like this team was, once again, trending in the right direction and feels like you're back at square one.
Yeah, I think that I think now it's official that no matter what kind of galvanizing, gutsy, make you believe kind of win they have, you can't believe, I think, until further notice. And, perhaps that's our own fault. I don't know if we should have been saying they're back after beating that absolutely horrendous Blues team. That defense. You want to talk about just a 5-year change from what ruined your night in June 2019 to what they are now. That defense is horrendous. Oh my goodness. You look at just not a great team. But you want to look beyond that, right? You want to look beyond the opponent and say what you did is more important than the opponent, right? And you thought you would have a good chance of it carrying over. I personally believe that Dallas is the best team in the NHL. I do feel that way. We've talked about it before on this podcast. I think they're a very, very good team. They're very deep. They can beat you in a lot of ways, but that just wasn't competitive. And I think that's been the problem too many times this year, where we think there's a galvanizing moment, and the next game, they're just not competitive. I can deal with losing to Dallas, say 4-2, empty netter at the end, make it a 2-goal game. Yeah. That was awful. That was terrible. And I think what's been happening here, Connor, is that when they lose, it unravels fast. And I think that's the most concerning thing for me. That's what bad teams do. That's what the Buffalo Sabres would do for years, where they'd hang around for 25 minutes. Then you get a goal, and next thing you know, it's 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, the game's over. That is what I think is most concerning. Just not competitive, soft, too easy for Dallas, who, again, good team, but just not competitive enough from the Bruins standpoint, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's the same thing as that game against Carolina, where Carolina, for all the losses they've had, and they've been banged up, they've really augmented their roster quite a bit. Still a good team. That doesn't mean that they should smoke you 8-2 in a game, right? Again, you could have these games where it's competitive, you come up just short. It hasn't even been close. As you said, way too easy for Dallas on multiple occasions in that game. Jeremy Swayman, I don't think was up to par. The structure in front of him wasn't great. You had too many guys that were soft on the puck, defensive structure all over the place. And I think you look at it, right? As you're trying to sum up what this team is, right now, you look at kind of the repeated flaws that have been, hindering this team. One thing we've seen is just they can't get into a rhythm. And as much as you look at that Blues game and them coming back, there's been multiple times this year where they've had those games where all right, feeling good about where they are. and then they fall flat on their face. Like, again, like the Avalanche were kind of rough to start the year, but you still beat them on the road. You're like, all right, feel good about where they are. Where do they do after that? A lifeless game against the I almost said Utah Jazz, the Utah Hockey Club. They lose in overtime there. It's a game where Montgomery, gives it to Marchand on the bench, and then they go to Nashville, a team that has, I think, entering Thursday, 5 regulation wins over 16 games, and they get shut out. Not great. So that's one instance. And then you have another one, like the game at home against Toronto, overtime win. All right, feeling good about where they are. How do they follow that up? They get shut out by a pretty bad Flyers team and then get steamrolled by Carolina. Not great. What happens again? You bounce back. You get shutout wins over, again, admittedly 2 teams in the Flyers and the Kraken, but a win's a win. How are you feeling? And then they go up to Toronto, get shut out. Like, this is just kind of par for the course of where this team is, adding on like how they just no-showed against Dallas. Like, it's beyond like the fact that it's the same flaws in the games, right? Of unraveling during adversity, special teams being poor, the defensive structure being bad. They just can't get out of their own way in terms of building any sort of momentum. And that's, again, where you look at this team, you're like, is this just a bad team? Because right now, like, you look at the characteristics and just they can't get out of their own way. They unravel during times when things go south. It's not good, however way you want to kind of paint it.
No, and discounting OTLs, right? Just for the sake of conversation here, they have at no point this season been 2 games over 500. Like that is what I think is truly maddening. They've been, the best they've been is 2-1. That's the best they've been this year. That's not good enough for a team that invested $84 million basically into free agents, that invested $8.25 million per year in their RFA goaltender. Like, it's just not good enough. And I think what's going to be really interesting here is they got a pretty soft spot in the schedule coming up, I would say, where you have St. Louis, you have Columbus, you have Utah coming to town after that.
Detroit,
Detroit, Vancouver, who, they've been up and down this year. Their goaltending is
Penguins.
Like, and you're home for a bit. If these struggles come to home ice, that's when ownership's antenna goes up. That's when they start to talk about, okay, what's going on here? Because if your fans aren't going to pay, I looked on Tuesday night because I was curious. The cheapest get-in for Saturday's game against St. Louis on Ticketmaster was $104 before fees. Is anybody paying that right now to watch this product? Like, I'm not trying to shit on the Bruins because I think we both agree that our lives are better when the Bruins are good. I'm not going to lie to you. I grew up a Bruins fan. I want the team to be good. It's more fun for me covering a good team, writing about a good team. This product right now is wretched. It's not fun to watch. It's low event hockey. And I think that's when ownership's antenna is going to go up because you got the third highest prices, I think, in hockey behind MSG and up in Toronto. And if people aren't going to pay it, or they're going to go and hate watch it, and you're going to hold them hostage basically for 2.5 hours to watch that product, they're not going to accept it. They're not going to accept it. And I think the Bruins have been blessed for years now, having a great fan base, a fan base that is passionate and cares. But they're also smart. They're also smart enough to go, this is shit. I don't want to watch this. I'm going to stay home. Thanks. And I think that's going to be something that they dealt with that in 14-15 and 15-16. And it was trending that way in 16-17. And when they made the coaching change, I remember Don Sweeney saying, our home record hasn't been good enough, and we're trying to figure out why that is. That's from above. Hey, we don't win games at home. That's not a good look for us. That's so this upcoming stretch here, this is where I think it gets real for the Bruins and their situation and their shortcomings so far.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things too where you look at the low event hockey. It's one thing to be low event, boring hockey, and you're winning.
Yes,
it is so much worse when exactly. The Islanders, any Guy Boucher team, like, man, it is boring. But hey, the Devils in like the '90s and early 2000s were boring as hell, and they won a couple of cups out of it. So there's a difference between low event hockey and you're winning these games, and what the Bruins are doing right now, which is not fun for anyone involved. Like, again, all of us like who are covering the team are watching it. We're trying to scan everything that's going on from high above the ice. There have been multiple times where a lot of us have been like, this is just a bad product. Like, this is not fun. Like, there's no instance where you feel like there's a jolt in the crowd. The most exciting thing is when they play Stone Cold Steve Austin on the video board. Or maybe that's just my thing. No, my favorite is when they were playing Creed one day. That was the highlight of the season, which, listen, Ty.
Matty Poitras, they're not going to happen again. He's down in Providence now.
Exactly. You got that now where you don't have any young, exciting players also up with the team. You have Patrick Brown as the first guy up in Dallas. Like, let me tell you, Ty, I love me some Creed. Love me some Scott Stapp. It is not good that we are, 18 games into the year, and my favorite moment so far has been Matt Poitras selecting Creed for his song. Like, we're in the doldrums right now, if that's where we're at. But, again, the product on the ice, beyond just the wins and losses, you're not seeing anything you're like, even if they win on Saturday against a Blues team, one, just the benefit of the doubt is gone in terms of, like, all right, are they going to string it together? But, like, the way they're going about things is you're not seeing a winning product out there or a sustainable winning product. It just looks so disjointed. You can put a whole bunch of Mad Libs adjectives in there, but whatever they are, they're not great.
Yeah, and listen, they have some blowout losses that have skewed these numbers, but as of right now, they have the fourth worst goal differential in hockey. I think the only teams worse than them so far have been, I think, Montreal, I want to say Pittsburgh, San Jose is up there as well, and I want to say maybe Philly. I'm not certain on that.
Good crew to be in.
But you don't want to be in that grouping. That's a terrible grouping to be in. I'm sorry, it's not Philly. It's they're tied with St. Louis. So another shit team. So
yes,
you don't want to be in that grouping. Like, you look at the playoff teams, right? You look at where they all are. Like, the Bruins are, like, by far the most fatally flawed, it feels like, of that grouping. And yeah, they can turn it around, but it's also predicated on guys going on a PDO bender, where they're shooting 20% and your goalies are now stopping .940. So great, you got some luck on your side finally. I don't know how much of this, Connor, is bad luck right now. I just think it's a roster that is inherently flawed. I think it's flawed, and it's, I don't know how you pull yourselves out of it, if you're the Bruins, but yeah, to your point, the benefit of the doubt is gone. Like, wins are not going to matter until proven otherwise. There has to be a galvanizing moment, right? And we're a fourth of the way through the season. It hasn't happened yet, and I think they are lucky that they are playing in such a meh division. Like listen, Ottawa's on their heels. Ottawa's no picnic right now either. Linus Ullmark on Thursday night gave up 5 goals on 19 shots. Like, so he's not playing that well right now for Ottawa, but they have games in hand over you. And I think if you're the Bruins, the positive as well, we're still a coin flip away from being in the playoffs. Like, yeah, but you shouldn't be. You should be one of the best teams.
You should be right behind Florida. Yeah,
I think we both picked them to win the division this year.
Yes.
And it's not looking like that's going to happen right now, barring some of these guys turning it around here. But there's just so many of them, right? That, let's say one guy, I mean, think about it this way, right? Like, Zacha has come around. Coyle has come around of late by what he started out as. Coyle has 2 goals and an assist in his last 6 games. Frederick scores his first point last night since October 26th. Morgan Geekie is producing again right now. You're still not winning. You're still not winning. You're still 500, and that's the scary part of it. Is that even if these guys turn around, is it enough to propel you to victory every night? I think that's a fair question. It's a fair thing to ask right now about this team and given where they are.
Yeah, no. However way you want to, paint the picture, it's not great, especially when your goaltending has also not been great. At least your number one guy. Before we dive into that, Ty, let's take a quick break. Here from my good friends over at PrizePicks. The leaves have fallen and the temperature is dropping, but you know what that means. Hockey season is finally here. And there's so many ways for you to get in on the action and win up to 100 times your cash with as little as 4 correct picks on PrizePicks. As you and the world's best players take the game to a new level on the ice, gridiron, court, and much more. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this hockey season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. There's really no shortage of ways to participate in PrizePicks, especially during hockey season. This week, I'm picking David Pastrnak for more than 0.5 goals and Nikita Kucherov for more than 1 assist. It's really that easy. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS on the PrizePicks app to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Shout out once again to our good friends over at PrizePicks. Ty, as you said, not a whole lot going right for this team right now, all across the roster. You can add Jeremy Swayman to that mix. Gives up 7 goals, first time in his career. A couple of those were stoppable shots that he had. And again, like, make no mistake, the structure in front of him was not great. You had guys puck watching on Dadonov's second goal. I mean, you can go through every single one of those goals, and there's 2 or 3 breakdowns or sequences where I think Andy Brickley was losing his mind during the broadcast as it was just playing out. But still, for your number one goalie who's trusted to bail you out in these situations, you need a whole lot more from a guy like Jeremy Swayman, who has just not been able, much like the team, to get into any sort of rhythm. And I think he's got an 888 save percentage right now. I think you look at goals saved above expected, he's like 48th. He's got like a -5, maybe a -4. Whatever it is, not good enough for a guy making that kind of money. A guy that going into this year, you're entrusting to bail you out. Like, I think we all knew that this Bruins team was going to have some tough sledding offensively. You could always look at the defense and the goaltending as being like, all right, you still have a foundation that even if it's a rough product, you're going to accrue points at a pretty steady rate. Not getting that right now with the way Jeremy Swayman's playing.
Yeah, no, he hasn't been good enough. I think no matter how you slice it, 5-on-5 he's actually been pretty effective, but it doesn't really matter when the power, the PK can't stop a nosebleed. It feels like, and your details are just completely out the window. I think last night was kind of the first time where I think the Oscar Bach goal I didn't like at all.
Yeah. Little chip shot.
It's a rookie. Yeah, it's a rookie, hitting out of the sand dunes by you. I mean, come on. That can't happen there. And then there are some things like the Duchesne shot. Like, that's a great shot. And Duchesne's an unbelievable player. What a value for Dallas. $3.5 million, I think, is what he's making. Like, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
The Dadonov penalty shot, it's like, okay, it's a good shot. Like, he's shooting all the way. Maybe you got to stop there, but ultimately, last night was a clunker. It was a clunker for him. Obviously, career high 7 goals against. Hasn't been up to par this year, and I think what's really interesting, Connor, is I did these stats and I'm writing it for the SportsHub.com. Like, Jeremy Swayman this year, when he's playing the second start of a 2-3 for the Bruins, he's 1-4 with an .877 save percentage. The only win, by the way, was the first game. It was the first time of that situation. It was the LA Kings overtime win. He played great in that game.
Yeah.
But since then, 0-4, .877, or 1-4, .877 overall. When Swayman has at least 2 days of rest this year, which is kind of what he was with Ullmark, because they rarely started, consecutive games. 2-2 with a .908 save percentage. It's a 31 percentage point swing. Like, that's substantial. It's substantial. And I think it's so far, months 1 and 2 of being a workhorse guy has not really played out the way that the Bruins envisioned it. And I think Korpisalo has given you something here. So for the Bruins, they may have to go back to almost a pseudo rotation here just until Swayman finds his game. Like, because right now, the whole workhorse idea, it's not working for him right now. And so if Korpisalo is giving you good games, and I think he has been giving you some good games here,
Yeah.
maybe you got to give him some run here. And because Swayman, to your point, just the overall picture right now, it's good in certain pockets, but add it all up, not good enough right now for the Bruins, no doubt.
Yeah. And not for a guy making that kind of money as being a number one franchise guy. It would be very funny if the galvanizing or turning point of this season is like they just give more reps to Korpisalo and he bails them out. Because if you told us, I think going back to late June when the Allmark trade goes down, being like, well, let me tell you, they're gonna have to go back to rotation and Korpisalo is gonna get a lot more reps. You'd be like, oh man, that's not great.
Right, right.
As you said, like you look at just the production and sticking with plays and especially like high danger looks. The only times where like Korpisalo has looked really out of place are like those low danger shots from the point. Everyone's just going to be peppering the net from the blue line to try to beat the Bruins and Korpisalo's in net. But like you look at just how narrow the margin for error is for this team right now, with so many guys misfiring, the offense being what it is, the defense being one banged up and two structurally just completely disorganized. A guy like Korpisalo might be the guy that gets you through this little bit of turbulence you're fighting through right now. Which, again, if you told me a few months ago, I'd say you're nuts if that's the guy that's bailing you out. But you just look at the baseline production right now. He's giving you a better chance to win right now. And if Swayman's not finding his game, then maybe you do have to, as you said, go with that back and forth rotation, at least for the time being. And one, maybe it steadies your overall game, which you desperately need, but also maybe it's a kick in the ass to Swayman to get him into gear. This is a guy that is extremely competitive. We all know that. But maybe you need kind of to cut his minutes a little bit to kind of get him back in order, because you need more of what you've had from Swayman the last couple of years, because this team right now, as currently constituted and as they're currently playing, you're going to need to win a whole lot of 2-1, 3-2 kind of games. And right now you're just not getting enough from him in that regard.
Yeah, and I think the other part of it too is that like we can acknowledge that the Bruins have been a little too fast and loose in their own zone at times. However, this is according to naturalstattrick.com. They do great work over there in terms of tracking a lot of these things and boiling it down in a very palatable way, I think, for people. There are 41 goalies that have played at least 400 all situation minutes this year.
Yep.
Jeremy Swayman has faced a 6.93 high danger shots per 60 minutes. That only ranks 28th out of 41. So it's not like he's getting completely shelled where you're like, okay, he's got to steal you every night and there's a limit to that. Like, no, like I think they're playing okay in front of him. It can be better. Yes, it can always be better. But I don't think this is a situation where like, oh my God, he's getting shelled every night and he has
Buffalo or Montreal or
exactly. And like just for context here, so he's at 6.93. The league leader is Lucas Dostal in Anaheim, who's facing 10.41 high danger shots per 60. That guy's under siege every night.
Yeah.
This, not so much. It can be better by the Bruin standards, but it's not a tremendous deviation from a year ago. In fact, I would almost argue that's probably lower than a year ago. If I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I would imagine it's almost lower than a year ago.
Yeah. They really struggled with high danger looks, especially last year, and they were bailed out by both Swayman and Allmark, I think, playing at a high level.
Exactly. No, that's 100%. That's the thing, is that last year Swayman and Allmark were bailing people out to the point where they thought the Bruins defense was still really tight, when all the metrics kind of said they're kind of middle of the pack there in terms of, it's not the Chara Seidenberg lockdown years by any stretch, but again, that's another number that sort of highlights that Swayman hasn't been up to par this year. And I wonder if the camp has delayed him. Like, is he currently in mid-August form when he should be in mid-November form because of missing all that training camp? You can train at BU. You can work with, your trainers and whatnot, but it's not the same as NHL reps, no matter how you try to, replicate them. So it's the only thing like it. NHL reps are the only thing like NHL reps. So he's got to pick it up here. But I do think those numbers I said off the jump, like it gives some legitimacy to the idea of maybe going back to more of a tandem type until Swayman sorts his own game out.
Yeah, no, I do think that has to probably be something that Jim Montgomery and the Bruins have to endorse moving forward, at least until they get out of this funk. As for what actually happens with Jim Montgomery is probably the more pressing question for the Bruins. Before we get into that, Ty, let's take another quick break. Here from our friends over at Game Time Tickets.
There's nothing like watching an NBA or NHL game live. The energy in the building, the sounds on the ice or the court, the memories you make with family, friends, and other fans. It's unmatched. And the coolest part is when strangers sitting around you become your best friends. You can make these memories with Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. When I use Game Time, I also love the flash deals, which help me get discounted prices on really good seats. Plus, who doesn't love seat views, which give a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy? So, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Now, back to the show.
Shout out once again to our good friends over at Game Time Tickets. Ty, we are once again revisiting a storyline that has already been discussed multiple times, but when you look at the way this team is playing, the contract uncertainty, all those things, we know we're going to have to address it once again as far as Jim Montgomery and his job security. When you look at, again, the state of this team and the way they're playing and the repeated mistakes, does it feel inevitable that maybe not, we're recording this on Friday, that it's going to drop at 5 p.m. today or anything like that, but if this malaise continues where they're just treading water, does it feel inevitable that if they need to make a change, that he's the guy that the top brass is going to have to look at, that they're going to be moving on from?
Yeah, I mean it's always easier to fire a coach than to trade an entire roster, right? And I think that's kind of where they are. Where if you have 5 guys that are underperforming, well, A, you're not going to trade them because you're not going to get the proper return, but B, it's just not feasible in today's NHL. The player for player in season hockey trade movement, it's just so rare. I mean, think about like the Caps just traded for Lars Eller. They bringing him back from Pittsburgh. They gave up a 3rd round pick, I think, and a 5th round pick, I want to say, or a 2nd and a 5th, something like that. Like, there's no player going the other way, right? And I just think that player for player swaps in season are just so rare, increasingly rarer. And there's cap space, right? Teams have cap space this year for the first time in a while, but they weaponize it. They say, we're not going to take that guy just to shake up your locker room. Give us something else. And I think there's that part of it as well. And so firing a coach is just easier, right? And this might be the easiest one yet in the sense that he doesn't have a contract beyond this year. It's not as if you're going to be paying out another 2 or 3 years of a contract like you had to do with Bruce and like you had to do with Claude. This would be it. This would be the end of that deal. And I think like this is where I am with it at this point. Let's say they win 5 in a row. Are they suddenly going to believe in Jim Montgomery? Like, it kind of feels like they've already made up their mind in terms of how they view this guy. And anything short of a 3rd round appearance might be, all right, thanks, we'll see you later. So you're sort of delaying the inevitable. Now, the way I look at it, and fair or unfair to Don Sweeney and Cam Neely, is that he's a human shield right now. He is a human shield for what may very well be shoddy roster construction. This may not be the best roster. This may arguably be their worst roster since 15-16, if or 16-17. Like it's not great so far. And so the longer that Jim Montgomery is here, and the longer the team is sort of, taking 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, like just not able to find their footing. He's a guy that management can go, no, it's him. It's not us. We gave him a good roster, but he's not doing it. And so the sooner you take that away, in my opinion, the sooner the spotlight is put on management. And I wonder how they feel about that personally.
Yeah, no, you make a good point there in terms of, if you move on from him and the results stay the same, then what's the next step? It's you looking in the mirror as to how you built the team, because right now, like you're looking at it, and I know you touched on this on a column a few days ago. Like, if you want to play the blame game, like make no mistake, like the urgency hasn't been there. You're concerned about the messaging getting through to the players. We know how short a shelf life NHL coaches have now. The slow starts, the special teams erosion there. There's plenty of things you can point to that you're looking at coaching and you're like, we need more right now. You're not getting remotely enough, and there's you can make a justified argument as to why the Bruins could be compelled to make a coaching change down the road. That being said, the blame game does not just fall on Jim Montgomery's shoulders, as you said. Like, you look at the way this roster was built, and like I'll raise my hand. Like, I had this team, as you said, finishing at the top of the Atlantic. My prediction was them going to the conference finals, losing to the Rangers. Like, on paper, I liked the way this team was built, but now you're looking at it, and there was a whole lot of risk involved, I think, with banking on so many guys off of career years, either maintaining that or even taking steps forward. And you could make the case of like, maybe Charlie Coyle is just a 60-point guy. Like that, he looked pretty damn good in that spot last year. Maybe Morgan Geekie, who thrived with getting more reps in Boston as opposed to Seattle, maybe he can be a 20-goal guy. Like, can Frederick be a 25? Like, you're looking at guys, and if you look at it on an individual basis, you could see the way the team was built and be encouraged by what you were going to get. But there was a whole lot of assumptions or hope that guys were going to take another step forward, and just about everything has taken a step back this year. So, again, shoulda, coulda, woulda in terms of the way the team is built. But yeah, if Montgomery's gone, the blame then falls on management and, of course, the players. Like, as you said, you can't trade the roster, but you up and down the lineup, there's so many guys that are underperforming, that aren't living up to their expectations, that need to pull on the rope. But as you said, if Montgomery goes, then it falls on both the players and management to look in the mirror. And the criticism, all those things, it's already there. Like, you're already hearing it from Bruins fans, but if the coach is out of the way, that's who's going to bear the brunt of it moving forward.
Yeah, a couple quick hitter points here for me when it comes to this topic. I do think that it falls on the players in execution more than Jim Montgomery. That said, go back to that Behind the B episode where they're all sitting in the war room. They have it Warrior. He signs off on this team. It's July 1, but he's going, we're a better team. We're a deeper team. And then Sweeney says, and then we can adjust and we can add a top six forward. And you hear Montgomery off camera go, correct. It's like, so he wasn't sitting there in July or August going, hey, I don't have the tools I need to build this roster. Right. So there's that part of it. Secondly, the thing I don't like that was in Thursday's game, Brandon Carlo gets absolutely smashed into the boards. Face first, looks bad. It's a guy with concussion history. Yep. It's a leader on your team. He doesn't wear a letter, but he's your NHLPA player rep. He has worn a letter in the past. A teammate that everyone loves and fights for. They rally around the guy. They reduce the penalty from a 5 to a 2. They cut to behind the Bruins bench. There's just no reaction. Montgomery, hands in his pockets, says, okay, power play, let's go. Like, I would like to see something there. I know, like, we're maybe we're removed from that age of coaches throwing sticks on the ice and throwing water bottles and getting ejected from the game. I understand that part of it, but you want a little bit of passion, don't you? Like, isn't that something that this team lacks right now, is passion and energy and feeling like we're going to go balls to the wall because, to hell with you. You just hurt one of our leaders, one of our friends. Now you're going to pay for it. If your coach kind of has that timid, tame mentality, I think sometimes like it bleeds over onto the product on the ice. And maybe I'm putting too much stock in that, but that bummed me out as a viewer, as an observer, seeing a player like that get hurt on a reckless hit. They reduce it from a 5 to a 2, and there's just no reaction. It's like, I want some passion there. Show me you care. Show me that you don't want to get fired. Show me that you give a shit. I go back to Claude Julien in 2016-17 when they were scuffling and they were free-falling. Claude had a press conference where he talked for about 11 minutes, and he said, I want to be part of the solution here. I don't want to be fired. I want to fight with these guys. I want us to come together. I want us to win some games. I just feel like Montgomery's going through the motions, and that might be a product of the Bruins stringing him along here and making him a lame duck head coach. But Jesus, can I get some passion? Can I get some energy? Can you make me feel like you care that you might get fired if this team doesn't start winning games? I hated that on Thursday night. I thought that was a perfect time for a reaction to galvanize the bench and to get your game going. And it fell by the wayside. That's so annoying to me.
And then you also look at just the way that sequence played out, where at the end of that period, Charlie Coyle gets the goal, Frederic gets a point, Coyle gets a goal. You're like, all right, it's a 2-1 game. Like, they responded. You have a bad break there on that play. Thankfully, Brendan Carlo returned to the game, which is great to see. But you have that sequence. You have the Lori penalty that leads to a penalty shot. Again, you're kind of swimming against the tide the way that first period was going, but even with like the lack of a response there, you come back, you make it a 2-1 game. It's a whole new ball game going into the second. And then again, it's what we keep on seeing with this team. It's just you're taking your foot off the gas, like completely flat, no pushback. Dallas had way too many opportunities to generate quality looks, coming in waves across the offensive zone. Like, you just see way too much of that. And as you said, like, we're looking at galvanizing efforts or something like that. The only guy who stepped up was Zadorov, who has not been good, has not found his footing, but I noticed that a lot more than a lot of these other sequences, right? Where at least you have a guy like Nikita Zadorov who's willing to drop the gloves with Jamie Benn, a guy who should know better than to hit a guy in the numbers like that close to the glass. Like, it's not, you're just looking, I think, for any sort of momentum or spark that you want to see from this team that makes you think that, what have we said all throughout this year when they've been scuffling? And you've heard it from, I'm sure we've talked about it. You hear it on like Nesson of like, this team's got the bones of still a good team. Like in the playoffs, it all comes together. Like, they could do something. Well, if they can't handle adversity right now, what gives you hope that they're going to solve it when the stakes are actually raised and you got Sam Bennett and these guys flying in as opposed to a sleepy game in November, right? Like, that is the concerning thing. I don't know why there's a little thumbs up bubble that just popped up.
You gave a thumbs up. See? Watch.
Fireworks,
man.
This is very jarring considering how dour this conversation is. But if we have to do another one like in a few weeks where they're like actually like 4 games under, we should have like that in the background the entire time. But no, like, I think you look at where this team is, and this goes to, I think, to a greater point, Ty, is let's say they move on from Montgomery. Is that going to change the course of the team? Like, again, we are in middle of November, but is this team just not that great?
It's starting to feel that way, right? And I think it kind of goes back to what we've talked about earlier in past episodes where you had so many guys coming off career years that their natural regression, it's coming, but it's also coming like hard. Yeah. I didn't see Trent Frederic going from shooting almost 15%, I think 14.5, I think was the exact number the last 2 years, to shooting 4. That's a 10% drop. If it's even 8%, let's just say, he's still got 2 or 3 more goals than he has right now. So it's just like, it's an extreme regression for a lot of guys. Charlie Coyle, you mentioned, at 60 points a year ago, currently paced for, I think, 20 this year. That's a crazy drop off. And he should get hot here and get closer to maybe 40, 45 between now and game 82, assuming he's healthy. But like, right now that's a cliff that you just fell off. It's not, oh, it's a slight dip. Like, no, you fell off the cliff there, dude. And so I think that's what's been hitting them really hard. I think defensively, they haven't been the lockdown grouping that we thought they would be. There's still a lot of really bizarre reads that lead to like 2-on-1s the other way. And you're like, how the hell did that happen? There's just been too many of those. Right. And I think that Nesson did a really good job. Their intermission show with Adam Pellerin, Billy Jaffe, and Barry Peterson, they did a great job of highlighting how other teams are basically sucking the Bruins into, odd man rushes for at the Bruins' expense. And I think that's been a really big part of their struggles this year. Is just reading the play. And then when you're not getting the saves and when you're not getting the scoring, it's kind of just one big nightmarish meal. You know, everything tastes bad and I want to return it, but you can't return it. You got to sit there and eat it. It sucks. That's kind of how it's been now, I think, for the Bruins now, you know, approaching Thanksgiving here. It's just they can't get out of their own way, and their bailouts are not there. The power play stinks. The PK stinks. Their goaltending is letting them down more than it's stealing them games. And so they don't have a bailout right now. The closest thing they have to a bailout is David Pastrnak going off. And even that, like, it's not, it barely did the job in St. Louis. And it wasn't there on Thursday. So they have nothing that can bail them out of what's been pretty horrific team play by their standards. So maybe they're not good, but they're not making it easy for themselves either, I would say.
Yeah, that is probably my big takeaway, at least for right now, going into this stretch where, again, the opponents are a little bit lighter, where you should be able to build some momentum, but they are not as bad as they are playing right now, but maybe they're not the same tier that we were putting them in maybe to start the year. Like, this is a team that could legitimately go on a run. Again, we've seen teams that just sneak into the playoffs and then go on a run. Maybe that's what, considering how hockey is and how, fruitless it is to project how teams do once you get to April and May, maybe that's what the path is. But right now, like, I think even if this team is not a 500 team, maybe they aren't what we were setting them out to be going into the year. Maybe they're just a team that's just good enough to make the playoffs, but have some flaws that can't just be corrected by a coaching change or avoiding a regression in shots on goal or anything like that. And maybe that's just kind of how you have to roll with it right now, which is not fun, but that's kind of the hand the Bruins have been dealt right now. And there's a lot of blame to go around if that is what this team ends up being, let alone a team that just doesn't make the playoffs, which they're also playing like that. So
I feel like every other week or every other game, rather, like I'm digging up a stat that the Bruins haven't done in 20 years, or, hey, this is the first time they've allowed 3 goals and 3 power play goals in 5 games or whatever since 1981, or hey, right. They just did this for the first time in the last 3 games. And the previous time they did was a one time in 800 games. Like, yeah, there's an element here of like truly bottoming out bad luck wise, but it's also, again, like, how do you pull yourself out of it? There's no reason to think that they're going to naturally pull themselves out of it because they haven't to this date. And at a certain point, like, the sample size gets big enough, and that is what you are. That is who you are. Your record is what you are. And I think the Bruins are kind of getting close to there. Yeah, now it's raining because you did thumbs down. I don't know how you have this set up. I don't have it like that. I can do like anything and nothing's going to happen here. You just went to Sin City. That was so weird.
I'm like Joe Biden controlling the weather.
Read my mind.
I'm just going to have that filter on the entire time for the next time we record, or they keep on losing.
I mean, that's how I feel right now. Like, this isn't fun. And I think that's what, like, people, like, I don't enjoy talking about a losing team. It's not fun. Look at the Patriots beat. Those guys have no idea what to do. I love watching the Patriots beat right now because they have no idea how to cover a rebuilding team. Because they're like, what is this? This is really good. This is really bad. We're supposed to be good. And conversely, like, there are just things that are happening right now that, like, kind of piss me off as, like, a person who wants to watch entertaining hockey. Hockey is my sport. I watch football, but I have completely fallen out of love with the NFL. I watch baseball, but again, it's too long. Basketball, I love watching, but it doesn't really matter. It feels like until later in the season. So when you treat your fan base to boring, low event hockey, it's a little annoying. It's a little frustrating, and I don't know what it is. It just hits me extra. And like a great example of this, Connor, and I'm sorry to keep you here. Like a great example is they call up Patrick Brown because Tyler Johnson has a family situation going on. Okay, Tyler Johnson was brought in here to put up points. He was brought in here to score, to add weaponry to the power play. Okay, what is Patrick Brown going to do for that? What's he going to do for that? Tell me. Please, somebody tell me what he's going to do for that. He's a good guy. He's a great leader for your younger players in the AHL. Georgi Merkulov has 2 goals and 7 points his last 5 games. He's a left shot. He's a power play specialist, probably at the NHL level. That's probably where he's going to make his money if he gets to the NHL ever. Why can't you see
maybe not with this team.
Why can't we see him? Please, somebody tell me. And the whole idea is, oh, you got to be a complete player. You got to impact the game at all three zones. Okay, your guys you have right now aren't doing that. So who cares? Give me some excitement. Give me some pizzazz. Give me something besides safe and boring and low event. And the Bruins just can't do that right now. And it's super frustrating. And it's going to have to be a hard conversation at some point that if you can't get your game right, if you can't get things going the way they need to go, you got to bring up some players that can bring up some excitement and kind of get the ball going in a direction where you're like, hey, they're losing, but at least they're fun. Like that. Like when you're losing and you're not fun, miserable.
Ty, this hasn't been a fun episode, but it hasn't really been fun. It hasn't been a fun season, at least so far.
I'm sorry to get so fired up.
Listen, completely justified.
This team should be better. They should be better. And the fact they're not, it's reflective of everybody. Sweeney, Montgomery, the players, the long-term philosophy here that you got to be this, you got to be that. Okay, well, your guys you have right now aren't doing that. So what the hell message does that send to the rest of the farm system? Yeah, you're going to sit in the AHL for 4 years? Like, why? Whatever.
The vibes, Ty, are not that great right now. I concur.
They need a 7-game winning streak. That's what they need right now.
That would be ideal. I think, the tone would be a little bit better, I think, going into next week when we record if they actually start stringing together some wins. But we will see. Even if they win on Saturday against the Blues, it's all about actually stacking wins, which has been hard to come by for this team for right now. Ty, before we let you go, where can we read your stuff? Where can we hear you on the radio, airwaves, all that good stuff?
Yeah, you can hear me every Saturday morning on the Hockey Show from 9 to 11 a.m. on 98.5 The Sports Hub. We always have some guests, Ryan Johnson, Bob Beers, Billy Jaffe. So we got a good crew there for sure. Try to get some more guests in over time here as well as we get settled in as the season gets a little bit deeper here as we go. It's almost Thanksgiving. That's so weird. Yeah. You can also find me on 95thesportshub.com as well. Do all the writings and whatnot are there. So that's where you can find me. And at _ Ty Anderson on X. I made a Blue Sky account. I have no idea what I'm doing there. That is Ty-Anderson, no underscore on that app. So I couldn't get my full name, my regular name, without some sort of addition there. And I'm not a big numbers guy. So I was like, whatever. We'll put the dash in the middle. So I got that. I'm on Threads as well. So yeah, you can just find me. Just type in my name. You'll find me. It's all out there. How about yourself?
Yes, you can read my stuff over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. We've covered every step of the way this season, from recaps to features, breakdowns, columns, all that good stuff. So you can read all of it over there in those two sites. You can find me on Twitter, X, at Conor Ryan _93. Also on Blue Sky. I don't think I've posted anything yet, but it's good to have.
It's a link dump, right? Like it's a link dump for now. I think. That's,
exactly.
Yeah.
I've got it in the holster in case I need to use it. But I think it's just Conor Ryan 93, no underscore there. Again, it's my same dumb face between both things. You'll be able to know who it is. So you can find me over on those sites. I think I have a Threads too. I don't even know. Again, just look at my name. It's the same dumb face. So you can find me on all those sites moving forward. But Ty, thank you for hopping on once again for this very pleasant, hopeful, not very cheerful podcast as we map out just how dreadful the Bruins have been. I look forward to talking with you next week as well, when hopefully there's more positive things to talk about.
Yeah, let's hope so. We can't. I hate to be a crybaby bitch right now, but man, it's tough, man. I feel bad for Bruins fans. I feel bad for people who this is their sport and they're excited to watch a good team, and they just haven't been treated to that this year. So hopefully they get it together, and hopefully we're having much more pleasant, less animated, and maybe still animated conversations a week from now.
There go.
They are. There's the fireworks.
We're cooking now. On that note, this is episode 278 of Poke the Bear. You fans have a great rest of your week.